From the deserts of the Middle East to the marble cathedrals of Europe, there has always been a world beneath the world, a secret current flowing through history, unseen yet undeniable. Kingdoms rose and fell, empires stretched across continents, but in the shadows, there existed men and women who believed they were guardians of something greater. Not rulers, not kings, but custodians of hidden truths. They operated in silence, often nameless, their legacies wrapped in mystery. Even today, their whispers echo in the stories of assassins, knights, and mystics who swore loyalty to causes too dangerous to be spoken aloud. The story begins in the rugged mountains of Persia during the 11th century, where a sect known only as the Assassins emerged. To the outside world, they were feared killers, agents of chaos striking without warning. But to themselves, they were something far different. Warriors devoted to a spiritual mission, sworn to protect the purity of their beliefs against both crusaders from the West and empires from the East. The word assassin itself would one day spread into every language, conjuring images of stealth and death. Yet few understand how disciplined and purposeful this secret order truly was. Their founder, Hassani Sabah, is remembered as the Old Man of the Mountain, Sai. From his fortress at Alamut, high in the Persian peaks, he crafted not only a base of power, but a philosophy. To him, life was fleeting, but the cause was eternal. His followers were trained with unwavering devotion, their loyalty sealed through ritual and faith. Legends tell of young initiates shown visions of paradise, perhaps through gardens filled with intoxicating beauty and guarded by silence, convincing them that martyrdom for the cause meant a return to eternal bliss. Whether these tales were truth or propaganda, they captured the imagination of enemies who could not understand how men would give their lives without hesitation. The assassins did not fight with armies. They fought with precision. A single dagger at the right moment could change the fate of a kingdom. They struck down governors, generals, even kings, but always with a sense of calculated purpose. Never random, never without reason. Each act was a message. No one, however powerful, was beyond the reach of their order. To the Crusaders, they were ghosts, shadows slipping through camps and strongholds. To Muslim rulers, they were a dangerous thorn, impossible to eradicate, yet too valuable at times to destroy, because their skills could also be bought. Allies and enemies alike courted them, for in the great game of empires, sometimes a silent blade was more powerful than an army of thousands. But their secrecy was not just about killing. The assassins believed themselves to be keepers of deeper knowledge, fragments of wisdom passed down from older traditions, cloaked in ritual. They wove Islamic mysticism, philosophy, and esoteric codes into their order, creating layers of meaning that outsiders could never penetrate. To stand among them was to be both warrior and initiate, both soldier and seeker. Their fortress libraries were said to hold texts forbidden by orthodox rulers, books of science and philosophy guarded as treasures. To destroy the assassins, as their enemies longed to do, was not merely to kill men, it was to silence knowledge. Yet their legend outgrew their reality. The name assassin became a byword in Europe, distorted into tales of fanatics intoxicated by drugs, slaves of a madman's will. Chroniclers wrote of them with a mixture of horror and fascination, never quite grasping the truth. But perhaps that was the point. Secrecy was their greatest weapon. The less the world understood them, the more fear they inspired. By the 13th century, The Mongols swept across Persia, tearing down castles and cities alike. Even the mountain fortresses of the Assassins fell under their relentless tide. Alamut was razed, its libraries burned, its gardens destroyed. Yet, even in defeat, the Assassins lived on in whispers. Their techniques, their aura of mystery, their very name, these survived long after their power had crumbled. In many ways, destruction only sharpened the myth. It is here, in this silence after fire, that the trail of secret orders begins to shift. Across the Mediterranean, in the heart of medieval Christendom, another order was rising, one far more visible, yet equally cloaked in secrecy. They wore white mantles marked with a red cross, sworn to protect pilgrims in the Holy Land. To the world, they were knights of faith. But behind the stone walls of their commanderies, they became something more. Like the Assassins, their lives were bound by vows, by ritual, by a loyalty to mysteries the outside world could not comprehend. And so, as one shadow faded in the east, another began to grow in the west. The Assassins had shown what fear and secrecy could achieve. The Knights Templar would prove what wealth and devotion could conceal. Both would shape the destiny of nations. Both would be remembered not just for what they did, but for what they might have been hiding. The year was 1119, 2 decades after the First Crusade had carved a Latin kingdom into the scarred soil of Jerusalem. Pilgrims from across Europe now poured into the Holy Land, seeking to walk where Christ had walked, but the journey was perilous. Bandits haunted the roads, Saracen raiders struck without warning, and many never returned. Out of this danger arose an order of knights unlike any the medieval world had ever seen, an order that would grow to wield immense power, inspire awe and suspicion, and leave behind a legacy still shrouded in mystery. The poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, better known as the Knights Templar. At their founding, they were few, 9 men, led by Hugues de Payan, who took vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. They swore to protect pilgrims traveling to Jerusalem, yet their base was no ordinary barracks. King Baldwin II of Jerusalem gave them quarters within the sacred precinct of the Temple Mount, on the very site believed to house the ruins of King Solomon's temple. It was here that their reputation for secrecy began. Legends soon spread that the Templars were not merely knights, but also seekers of ancient knowledge buried beneath the stones of the temple. Some claimed they unearthed relics of biblical power, perhaps even the Ark of the Covenant itself. Though no proof has ever been found, the rumor was enough to fuel centuries of speculation. What is certain is that from humble beginnings, the Templars grew into a force unlike any in Christendom. Within a century, they commanded armies, owned vast estates across Europe, and answered only to the Pope. Their symbol, the red cross on a white mantle, came to embody both purity and sacrifice. They were warrior monks, combining the discipline of the monastery with the ferocity of the battlefield. In the desert sands of the Holy Land, they became the shock troops of the Crusades, charging fearlessly into impossible odds. Chroniclers wrote of their courage, of knights who would rather die than retreat, bound together by vows stronger than family ties. But it was not on the battlefield that their deepest influence was felt. In the halls of Europe, the Templars became masters of finance. Their network of commanderies stretched from England to the Mediterranean, creating a system that resembled the first international bank. Pilgrims traveling to Jerusalem could deposit wealth in a Templar house in Paris and withdraw it safely in Acre. protected from the dangers of carrying gold across hostile lands. Kings entrusted them with treasuries, nobles with estates. Their wealth grew vast, yet officially they remained monks sworn to poverty. Here lies one of their greatest mysteries. How could men who owned nothing control so much? This paradox fueled suspicion. What knowledge had they uncovered in Jerusalem that allowed them to rise so swiftly? What secrets did they guard behind closed doors? Their initiation rites were hidden, their inner teachings whispered only to those who swore oaths of silence. Enemies accused them of heresy, of spitting on the cross during rituals, of worshipping a mysterious figure known only as Baphomet, of indulging in forbidden practices cloaked in darkness. Were these charges slander, weapons of politics, or was there some truth behind the veil? The truth remains lost, perhaps deliberately so. As the Crusades faltered and the Holy Land was lost, the Templars' immense power became their undoing. Kings who had once depended on their financial network now envied it. Chief among them was Philip IV of France, a monarch drowning in debt to the order. On a cold dawn in October 1307, Philip struck. Across France, Templars were arrested in a single sweep, accused of heresy, idolatry, and corruption. Under torture, many confessed to grotesque crimes, though such confessions remain forever tainted by pain. Their Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, was burned alive in Paris, proclaiming his innocence and cursing his accusers with his final breath. The Pope, under pressure from Philip, disbanded the order in 1312. Their lands were seized, their wealth absorbed by rivals, yet their secrets, if any existed, were never uncovered. Did they indeed worship some hidden deity, or was Baphomet merely a name invented by inquisitors? Did they possess relics of unimaginable power, now scattered or hidden? Or were they simply victims of fear and envy, destroyed because they had grown too strong? History gives no clear answer. But the Templars refused to vanish entirely. Their symbol, their mystique, survived in whispers. In later centuries, Freemasons and other secret fraternities claimed descent from the order. Writers and dreamers imagined Templar treasure hidden beneath chapels and cathedrals, their lost knowledge encoded in symbols scattered across Europe. Even today, stories of the Templars pulse through popular imagination, guardians of the Holy Grail, seekers of forbidden truths, architects of mysteries too great for the world to see. What connects them to the assassins is not simply the shadow of secrecy, but the sense that both orders were never fully what they appeared to be. Warriors on the surface, yes, but beneath, something more. Guardians of knowledge, practitioners of ritual, bound by oaths beyond the comprehension of ordinary men. The assassins struck from the shadows to shape history. The Templars rose in daylight, yet cloaked themselves in secrets as impenetrable as any mountain fortress. Both left behind legacies half in light, half in darkness, their true nature still obscured. And as the Templars burned, dissolved, and scattered, other hidden orders were already waiting in the wings. Mystical brotherhoods, alchemists, and secret fraternities that would weave themselves into the fabric of the Renaissance and beyond. The age of medieval secret societies was fading, but its echoes were far from over. The thread would continue, darker and more elusive, through the centuries to come. The fall of the Knights Templar did not end humanity's hunger for hidden knowledge. It merely shifted it into new forms. The battlefield was no longer Jerusalem, nor the Crusader kingdoms of the East. Instead, secrecy took refuge in cloisters, workshops, and hidden chambers of Europe. As cathedrals rose and empires expanded, another world flourished in shadow. A world of mystics, alchemists, and seekers who believed that truth could not be found on parchment alone, but in symbols, rituals, and the transmutation of the soul. By the 14th century, whispers of alchemy grew louder. To most, alchemy was a foolish pursuit, the attempt to turn base metals into gold. But for those inside its veiled traditions, it was something far more profound. The alchemist's furnace was not only a tool for chemistry, it was a metaphor for transformation. Lead into gold was only the surface. Beneath, it symbolized the transmutation of the human spirit, the purification of the soul through fire and patience. Secret manuscripts written in coded symbols circulated across Europe, their strange diagrams filled with suns, moons, and serpents eating their own tails. Only initiates, it was said, could decode them. The church looked upon these practices with suspicion. Yet princes and kings secretly courted alchemists, hoping that hidden wisdom might grant them power or eternal life. Legends grew of wandering sages who claimed to have unlocked secrets of immortality. Figures like Nicolas Flamel in Paris, rumored to have discovered the philosopher's stone. Was Flamel truly a master alchemist, or just a myth invented by later centuries? No one knows. But his name, like those of others, became bound to the notion that somewhere, in hidden laboratories and brotherhoods, a truth too dangerous for the masses was being preserved. It was in this atmosphere of secrecy and yearning that another order emerged, cloaked not in swords or armor, but in words and symbols, the Rosicrucians. Their story first appeared in the early 17th century, when mysterious pamphlets swept across Europe. They told of a secret brotherhood founded by a man named Christian Rosenkreutz, who had traveled through the East in search of ancient wisdom and returned to plant the seeds of a hidden order. The Rosicrucians, these texts claimed, were custodians of a universal truth, blending Christianity with mystical knowledge, science with spirit. Their mission was nothing less than the transformation of humanity itself. The impact was electric. Scholars, nobles, and mystics whispered about the invisible college, a hidden fraternity guiding the destiny of nations. The Rosicrucian manifestos promised a world where science, religion, and philosophy would unite, where the secrets of nature would be unveiled for the betterment of all. Yet for all the fascination, no one could point to a Rosicrucian lodge. No one could prove their existence. Were they real, or were they a myth deliberately planted to inspire seekers? Perhaps that was their genius, to be everywhere and nowhere at once. The secrecy of the Rosicrucians was not only about protection, but about power. By hiding themselves, they created an aura of mystique, a magnetic pull for those dissatisfied with the rigid structures of church and monarchy. To believe in the Rosicrucians was to believe that somewhere, beyond the reach of ordinary society, a deeper truth was being guarded. They became the embodiment of Europe's longing for hidden wisdom, a bridge between medieval mysticism and the dawning age of science. Connections began to form between the Rosicrucians and other secret traditions. Some whispered that they were the heirs of the Templars, carrying forward knowledge the knights had hidden before their fall. Others linked them to the alchemists, suggesting that the philosopher's stone was not a substance, but a truth preserved by the brotherhood. Still, others saw in their symbolism echoes of older currents, Gnosticism, Hermeticism, even fragments of Egyptian mysteries carried through the centuries. Whether these claims were true mattered less than the power they held in the imagination. The Rosicrucians became a mirror in which seekers saw what they most longed to find. Yet with influence came danger. Authorities feared that such hidden orders could undermine faith and stability. Was the Rosicrucian promise of a transformed world a vision or a threat? Monarchs looked suspiciously at scholars who claimed secret affiliations. The line between mystical brotherhoods and political conspiracy grew thin. In an age of wars of religion, the very idea of secret societies suggested plots, alliances, and hidden hands pulling the strings of nations. But perhaps the greatest legacy of the Rosicrucians was not what they did in secrecy, but what they inspired in the open. They became the seedbed of new currents: Freemasonry, Enlightenment philosophy, and esoteric traditions that shaped modern thought. They taught that behind the surface of history, there were deeper patterns, hidden connections, truths that only the initiated could glimpse. Like the Assassins and the Templars before them, they bound together secrecy and power in ways that blurred the line between myth and reality. By the dawn of the Enlightenment, secret societies were no longer confined to mountain fortresses or hidden manuscripts. They were becoming woven into the very structure of Europe itself. Lodges opened behind discreet doors in cities, rituals conducted by candlelight, oaths whispered under symbols of compass and square. The age of the mystical brotherhood was transforming into something even greater. The age of organized secret fraternities, where knowledge, politics, and mystery converged. The Rosicrucians had promised a hidden hand guiding history. Soon, the world would believe such hands were everywhere, and whether they were real or imagined, their presence would shape revolutions, philosophies, and the destiny of nations. By the 17th and 18th centuries, Europe was entering a new age. The fires of the Middle Ages had burned out, giving way to something brighter, an era of reason, discovery, and revolution. But even as science and philosophy flourished in the daylight, the need for secrecy remained. In fact, it grew stronger. For in a world where monarchs reigned by divine right and churches guarded orthodoxy with iron fists, some truths could only be explored behind closed doors. And so, in taverns, halls, and candlelit chambers, a new order arose, one that blended the craft of stonemasons with the wisdom of philosophers. This was the birth of the Freemasons, the most famous secret society the world has ever known. The Freemasons began not as a conspiracy, but as a guild. Medieval stonemasons had long formed brotherhoods to protect their craft, passing down the secrets of geometry, architecture, and cathedral building. Their lodges were places of fellowship and learning, where apprentices were trained and masters honored. But as the great age of cathedral building waned, these lodges transformed. Instead of only craftsmen, they began admitting gentlemen, philosophers, and seekers who saw in the masons' tools and rituals a powerful symbolism. A compass was no longer just for drawing. It became a metaphor for moral boundaries. A square was not just for stone, but for virtue. The tools of the mason became instruments of the soul. By the early 1700s, Freemasonry had evolved into something much greater than a guild. It became a fraternity of free thinkers, nobles, and intellectuals, united not by labor, but by ideals: brotherhood, enlightenment, and the pursuit of hidden wisdom. Lodges sprang up in London, Paris, and across Europe, attracting men of influence, scientists, artists, even kings. Their gatherings were cloaked in ritual, their oaths bound by secrecy. Outsiders whispered that these rituals carried echoes of the Templars, that the Freemasons were in truth the heirs of lost knowledge smuggled out of Jerusalem centuries earlier. Whether myth or truth, such whispers only heightened their power. Inside the lodges, the atmosphere was charged with symbolism. Candles burned, compasses and squares lay upon altars, and initiates advanced through degrees of knowledge, each level unlocking new layers of meaning. To outsiders, these ceremonies seemed bizarre, even threatening. But to members, they represented a journey of transformation, the shaping of rough stone into polished perfection, the crafting of a man into something greater than himself. In a time when free thought could invite persecution, these rituals offered a safe language of symbols, a hidden grammar of philosophy that escaped the scrutiny of kings and priests. As Europe moved into the Enlightenment, Freemasonry became more than a fraternity. It became a network. Its lodges connected thinkers across borders, creating a hidden infrastructure for the exchange of radical ideas. The ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity, later shouted in the streets of revolution, were whispered first in Masonic halls. Philosophers like Voltaire, scientists like Benjamin Franklin, and revolutionaries like George Washington all stood beneath the compass and square. Was it coincidence that nations toppled and republics rose in the very era when Freemasonry spread like wildfire? Or was it evidence of a hidden hand guiding the transformation of the modern world? To rulers, the Masons were both asset and threat. Some monarchs joined lodges, hoping to harness their influence. Others banned them outright, fearing conspiracies in the candlelit meetings. The Catholic Church condemned them repeatedly, declaring their oaths incompatible with the faith. Yet Freemasonry endured, precisely because its power was elusive. Was it a political force or a spiritual brotherhood? Was it a conspiracy or a community of seekers? The ambiguity was its strength. It could be whatever the world most feared or most desired. As with the Assassins, the Templars, and the Rosicrucians before them, secrecy was the lifeblood of the Freemasons. Outsiders projected onto them every fear and fantasy, that they controlled governments, guarded ancient relics, or worshipped hidden gods. In reality, much of their work was fellowship and charity, but the secrecy made them larger than life. The absence of knowledge became a canvas upon which the world painted its own myths. Yet the influence of Freemasonry cannot be dismissed. Their lodges offered one of the few spaces where men of different classes could meet as equals. Their philosophy blended mystical symbolism with Enlightenment ideals, shaping the culture of an age that questioned authority and dreamed of freedom. When the French Revolution erupted, when America declared independence, when new nations were born, Masonic imagery appeared again and again. On the Great Seal of the United States, the pyramid and the all-seeing eye echoed symbols found in Masonic lore. Coincidence or proof of their hand in shaping the world's destiny? By the late 18th century, whispers of Masonry had spread into darker corners. Some claimed the Freemasons were only one branch of a much greater conspiracy. The Illuminati, a secret order founded in Bavaria in 1776 with the aim of overthrowing monarchies and ushering in an age of reason. To the fearful, the Illuminati were proof that secret societies were not just fraternities, but hidden governments, pulling strings unseen. To believers, they were heirs to the very lineage of hidden wisdom, stretching back to the Assassins and the Templars. And so, the age of secret societies entered a new and even more dangerous chapter, one where myth, politics, and paranoia would fuse into an enduring obsession. The Enlightenment was a time of light, but it was also a time of shadows. For every revolution in the open square, there were whispers of lodges, brotherhoods, and hands that moved in silence. Whether true or imagined, those whispers have never ceased. The late 18th century was an age of upheaval. Thrones trembled, revolutions burned, and the old order crumbled before a new world of ideas. It was also an age where secret societies reached the height of both their influence and their notoriety. None captured the imagination, or the fear, of the world more than the Illuminati, a name that still lingers like a ghost in conspiracy theories today. But who were they, really? And how much of their power was truth, and how much was myth spun by those who feared the invisible? The Illuminati were born in Bavaria in 1776, founded by a law professor named Adam Weishaupt. Dissatisfied with the domination of church and monarchy, he dreamed of an order that would liberate humankind through reason, science, and equality. His vision was radical for its time, an enlightened brotherhood that would combat superstition and tyranny, guiding society into a new age. Borrowing the structure of other secret fraternities, Weishaupt organized his followers into degrees and rituals, each step unveiling more of the order's philosophy. But unlike the Masons, who cloaked themselves in ancient symbolism, the Illuminati pursued a very modern mission: revolution. At first, they were small, numbering only a few dozen, yet their ambition was vast. They sought to infiltrate other lodges, especially the Freemasons, using secrecy as a shield and influence as their weapon. Weishaupt's vision was to create a hidden network of thinkers, philosophers, and leaders who could subtly reshape society from within. To their enemies, this was proof of conspiracy, an invisible hand poised to overthrow kingdoms. To their supporters, it was hope, the dream that truth could be planted like seeds in the hearts of men who held power. But secrecy is a double-edged sword. Rumors grew faster than reality. Whispers spread that the Illuminati controlled councils, universities, even governments, that their members were hidden everywhere, their true goals masked by layers of deception. Paranoia took root. Monarchs who already feared the radical spirit of the Enlightenment now had a name for their anxiety: the Illuminati. By the 1780s, the Bavarian authorities banned the order, driving it underground. Officially, it was dissolved. But the very act of suppression only magnified its legend. How could one destroy what was invisible? How could one silence what was already hidden? Then came the French Revolution, the storming of the Bastille, the fall of the monarchy, the guillotine's reign of terror. These events shook Europe to its core. For many, it was unthinkable that ordinary men could bring down a king without guidance from some darker force. The Illuminati became the scapegoat. Writers and politicians claimed that behind the revolution's chaos lurked the hidden hand of Weishaupt's order, orchestrating the fall of thrones. Was it true? Or was it fear made flesh? The eternal suspicion that secret societies were manipulating history's course? Either way, the association of the Illuminati with revolution became permanent. The pattern repeated across centuries. In times of upheaval, when nations changed overnight, people sought explanations beyond the visible. Secret societies filled the void. Perhaps the assassins had taught the world that unseen blades could change empires. Perhaps the Templars had shown that immense power could grow in silence. Perhaps the Rosicrucians and Masons had demonstrated how hidden fraternities could spread ideas across borders. The Illuminati inherited all these legacies and became the perfect villain in the eyes of those who feared change. By the 19th century, conspiracy theories surrounding the Illuminati spread widely. They were accused of orchestrating revolutions, undermining religion, plotting world domination. Pamphlets and books painted them as puppet masters of history, despite the lack of proof that the order had survived in any organized form. The Illuminati became less a society than a symbol, the embodiment of mankind's fear of unseen powers. To believe in them was to believe that history itself was scripted, guided not by chaos or chance, but by hidden hands pulling the strings. And the fear never faded. Even in the 20th and 21st centuries, the Illuminati's shadow lingers in popular imagination. They are said to control governments, to hide in plain sight, to mark their presence with symbols, the all-seeing eye, the pyramid, the hidden sign. Whether invoked as satire, paranoia, or suspicion, the Illuminati remain shorthand for the fear that nothing in the world is as it seems. Yet, in truth, their story is no different from that of the Assassins or the Templars before them. They were born of their time, shaped by its dreams and terrors. They rose in secrecy, were destroyed by fear, and survived in myth. Their real power was not in their numbers, but in their ability to embody humanity's eternal suspicion, that there is always something hidden, always someone unseen, guiding the destiny of nations. As the 18th century gave way to the modern age, secret societies were no longer whispers in remote fortresses or obscure pamphlets. They had become woven into the very language of politics, religion, and myth. The world would never look at secrecy the same way again, and the fear of hidden powers, once born, would never die. History never lets go of its shadows. Long after the Assassins were crushed by Mongol steel, after the Templars burned at the stake, after the Rosicrucians faded into whispers and the Illuminati were banned into extinction, their stories continued to live, growing, twisting, mutating into something larger than fact. What remains today is not merely history, but a mythology of secrecy. And in that mythology lies their true legacy. For what defines a secret society is not just hidden meetings or coded rituals, but the power of mystery itself. The Assassins showed how fear could become a weapon, how the unknown presence of a dagger in the dark could paralyze kings more effectively than armies. The Knights Templar revealed how devotion, wealth, and secrecy could make a brotherhood rival the strength of nations. The alchemists and Rosicrucians taught Europe to dream of hidden wisdom, that beneath the surface of reality, symbols could conceal truths too dangerous for ordinary eyes. And the Freemasons and Illuminati carried those dreams into the age of revolutions, transforming secret fraternities into engines of political and philosophical change. What lingers is not their structures. They were dismantled, outlawed, or absorbed, but their echoes, secret handshakes, cryptic symbols, pyramids crowned with eyes, whispers of hidden treasure, all of these still breathe in our culture. Novels, films, and conspiracy theories keep them alive, reshaping old orders into modern myths. Some claim the Templars hid the Holy Grail, others that the Masons guard ancient Atlantean knowledge. The Illuminati, once a tiny Bavarian circle, are now imagined as architects of global power, their name invoked whenever history feels too heavy to be left to chance. But perhaps the deeper legacy lies in the psychological pull they exert. Humans have always sought meaning in the unseen, explanations for the chaos of history. Secret societies provide that framework, a way to believe that beneath the accidents of war, plague, and revolution, there exists a guiding hand, benevolent or sinister. Whether real or imagined, the idea of secret orders reassures us or frightens us that the world is not random, that someone, somewhere, holds the script. And yet, when we strip away the myths, a subtler truth remains. These societies were not supernatural. They were men bound by loyalty, by vision, by the hunger for knowledge or power. Their rituals gave them identity, their secrecy gave them strength, and their myths gave them immortality. That is their true influence. Not hidden treasures or occult relics, but the enduring lesson that the unseen can shape the seen, that what we believe about secrecy may matter as much as what secrecy hides. Even in the present, their shadows walk beside us. Modern fraternities, political clubs, even corporations borrow the language of secrecy. Oaths, symbols, initiation rites, echoes of older brotherhoods long gone. Conspiracy theories about hidden elites flourish in every corner of the internet, fueled by the same fear and fascination that once surrounded Alamut, the Temple Mount, or the lodges of Enlightenment Europe. The Assassins and the Templars may be dust, but their ghosts whisper in our collective imagination. And perhaps that is the greatest secret of all, that we need them. We need our hidden orders, our whispered conspiracies, our secret guardians and shadowed villains. They give shape to the unseen forces of history, to the mysteries of power and destiny. Whether as protectors of forbidden truth or manipulators of nations, they embody our endless struggle to understand what lies behind the veil. From the dagger in the night to the burning cross on a white mantle, from the cryptic pamphlets of the Rosicrucians to the whispered Illuminati plots, the story is always the same. Humanity seeking control over the chaos of existence. Some do it with swords, some with symbols, some with secrecy itself. But all leave behind the same echo, that history is never only what we see. There are always shadows, always whispers, always doors locked to the uninitiated. And so the question remains, as it has for centuries. Were these societies truly guardians of secret wisdom? Or were they simply reflections of our own longing for mystery? Perhaps the answer is both. Their power lies not only in what they were, but in what we believe they were. And as long as humanity hungers for hidden truths, the legacy of the Assassins, the Templars, the Rosicrucians, the Freemasons, and the Illuminati will never fade. They will remain forever the secret heartbeat of history,